Any question for today's subject? Yes. Okay, one-pointedness of mind. Explain a bit on that. What is this one-pointedness of mind? So as I have said before, it is a unification of mind on its object that's now in the Abhidhamma book. And the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma. So now I'm going directly into it. Don't fall asleep. This is a unification of mind on its object. The mental states are so many combinations. It needs these mental states to bind them together. Just as when you eat noodles, you have the flour, and then you say, I want to put some salt there, I want to put some pepper there. And they make some certain kueh, and they put water there, and they mix it all very nicely. Unification. Then everything is there in the noodle, or you make it one block. So the same way, these mental states combine all these various mental states together, produces one citta, one moment of consciousness. 17 moments of consciousness makes the stream of mind. One whole stream of mind. When you listen to me giving talk, then you listen, then there is contact to sound, and the mind arises. Wow, this is difficult. One stream of mind arises, recognizing this is difficult. But it needs 17 of these block. We call it one moment. 17 moments of these combined together to make the whole process of one stream of thoughts. So these cetasikas, these ekakatas, has the function of making thoughts by thoughts. But in another sense, in the Sutanta, in the discourses, when they use the word ekakata, they use the word concentration. Then they say, this is wrong concentration. When you are planning to steal, that is wrong concentration. When you are planning to harm another person, that is wrong concentration. So that is bad, because when you keep on thinking non-stop to harm that person, the karma is very strong, very intense, and you are going to reap a lot of suffering, a lot of mental pain, because you build up your mind so strong. And that is wrong concentration. And how do you build it so strong? By keep on repeating the act in your mind again and again. The thoughts of harming another person, you think about it 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, how to harm him, how to hurt him. And that is called concentration. Concentrated in harming another person. And the concentration, the mind has been running millions and millions of times with the object, because the object arise and die away, arise and die away. Everything that arises and it dies away, it registered into the mind. And then it arises again. The registration becomes, the object becomes very strong. Every time you registered it and put it into the mind. As you hate that person, you registered it in your mind again. The person that you hate. And so that person that you register in the mind, the object becomes very strong. And even when he is not around, then it arises in your mind again, the object. And when your mind, initial application, because the object has become strong, and when it's directed towards that object that you dislike, then you get angry for no reason. He's not there. He's no longer there. The person no longer there. But you just get angry and miserable. And if you, hey, why you're so unhappy? I don't know, but I'm unhappy. You don't know, because you cannot see your thoughts. Because you cannot see your thoughts. The thoughts is immaterial. You can't see with your eye. But your mind has connected with the objects that is unpleasant. This concentration enhance the object, make the object strong when it is repeated again and again. That is what we want in our meditation. Rising, falling, rising, falling. The mind say, I better sleep lah. Better sleep lah, so tired Better sleep lah. Then your wisdom mind arises. Brother James say, cannot sleep when you meditate lah. Come back. Initial application might come back again. Rising, falling. And the mind say, hey, time's up already lah, so long. Then again, the wisdom arises. Never mind lah. When it's time's up, brother say, will say, open your eyes. He never say it, so no time's up, okay lah. Go back to the object, rising, falling. Initial application. You got to develop the initial application again to these objects, reality objects, air element, and make this air element strong. So some meditator asked me this question, hey, Brother Jim, very funny. When I'm at home and reading newspaper, my mind runs to the rising and falling. Why? Because the object has become strong. Because you have developed the initial application and you have developed the sustained application. So even when you are reading the newspaper halfway, the mind suddenly go back to rising and falling. Because of that, because you have developed the wholesome initial and sustained application, then the objects appear by itself. It has become strong. Then why can't you sustain it for long? Because the joy is not there. So once you develop the joy becomes the motivating factor. Then the mind like to meditate. The mind keeps going towards meditation. Joy becomes the motivating factor. But the joy is not the unwholesome type of joy, the worldly type of joy, but the spiritual type of joy becomes the motivating factor. And when joy becomes the motivating factor, it develops into happiness, spiritual happiness. But without the joy as a motivating factor, meditation is so tough. It's so tough. A lot of time people come for first lesson, never see him second lesson. Totally disappear from this planet Earth. No longer around. It's so tough. They haven't developed the joy. Joy is not the motivating factor, but joy is motivating factor for external object char kway teow. Not for meditation, rise and fall. You will keep on remembering things outside, external, but not internal, inside. Not meditation. So concentration comes to prominence in the jhana. So once you develop absorption, ekakata becomes prominent. So when you talk about the five hindrances, they always say that ekakata, the one-pointedness of mind, suppresses the five hindrances. But you do not need ekakata, one-pointedness of mind, to suppress, because individually, for example, like doubts. What suppresses doubt? Vichara. When the mind is sustained in the meditation, doubts do not arise. What about restlessness? The initial application of mind. Overcome restlessness. When you keep putting your mind to this, then it does not run all over the place. You keep on initialing your mind towards this. So you do not need ekakata. Ekakata is, it overcomes sensual desire. When your mind arrives at one-pointedness of mind, then sensual desire do not arises in the mind. The mind do not think, I want to go for food, I want to sleep, I want to go home, and I will miss my TV program, better go home now, I still got time, I can catch the last series of the TV. These are all sensual desire that disturb you when you meditate, because there's no ekakata, there's no one-pointedness of mind, there's no concentration. So when there is concentration, then the sensual desire are suppressed. The mind stays by itself without moving, and it's so fantastic then it builds up the level of samadhi, which is required, the level of calmness and tranquility that is required to see things as they really are, for realization, for insight, knowledges. Without these 5 factors, there will be no realization. That is why it's important to develop these 5 mental factors or mental states. If you don't develop these, there will be no wisdom, insight, wisdom. You have to first come into samadhi, and only when you develop concentration, then samadhi arises, calmness, peace and tranquility. Because of this calmness and tranquility, all the defilements subside and you start to see reality. Wisdom arises, seeing things as they really are. Only when you see things as they really are can the mind detach from suffering, from things that causes suffering. And when the mind detaches from things that causes suffering, then the mind is free from pain, attain the highest bliss, the Buddha say, step by step by step. The Buddha say, like the ocean slopes gradually. You must have these before you have these. You have these, then you have these, then you have these, one by one. People who say that, I have attained what? Inside, what inside? Don't know. And they attain, but they don't know. They should know because they would have gone through step by step. It will be very clear in their mind. They would understand a lot of things that people don't understand without insight. Right or not, they would have understand a lot of things in the mind, how to handle the mind. Yes?
That means we have to have this 5 quality.
Yes.
To somebody.
Yes, you must have all these. If you don't have the initial application, the first one, you can't develop sustained application. And there's no spiritual joy if you don't sustain your mind in wholesomeness, either in samatha or vipassana object. Samatha, 40 objects, vipassana, 4 foundation of mindfulness. So if you haven't established the first one, if the mind never goes towards meditation, you never get the samadhi, which is going to be the ekaggata. Never. You will never taste the joy, the spiritual joy of deep calmness and peace. And people do that in many ways. Chanting is one of them. Some like the chant. That leads to samadhi. And after chanting, they feel so peaceful and serene and happy. But they do not have to sit and rising, falling, because there are other ways they can develop concentration by directing the mind to just one word. Some they chant the whole phrase, some they chant the whole book, some they chant the whole page, and some they just use one word, enough, Buddha, enough. 15 minutes a day, then go half an hour a day. Very soon the mind gets into deep peace and calmness. Then they feel very joy. Even they don't have so much money in the bank, doesn't matter. They're contented and very happy. But there are people with a lot of money in the bank, they are not contented, not happy, because they do not have the spiritual joy that comes with contentment. Once you have the spiritual joy, you have the contentment. It comes with the spiritual joy. You're contented with what you have, not what you don't have. But worldly happiness, always, not contented with what you have, because what is next, they will ask. After this, what? After you got the motorbike, what are you going to work for? Motor car. After you have a Proton, what are you going to work for? Mercedes. Otherwise, no reason to work. No reason to work if you're not going to have the next good things. Why do you have to work for? Why do you sweat for? Why do you need overtime for? You want the next best thing that you can have. Worldly joy is always discontented. Once you have one, you want the other. Yes, it's always discontented. spiritual joy always comes with contentment. Happy with what you have, not what you don't have. So you see the difference, the difference between the happiness that is wholesome, worldly happiness that is unwholesome.